The social worker's manicured nails drummed against the clipboard like a countdown to execution. Elena Morales watched those fingers, perfectly painted in corporate burgundy, and felt her world cracking apart. "Miss Morales, I need you to understand the gravity of this situation." Patricia Hartwell's voice carried the practiced sympathy of someone who delivered bad news so many times it had become routine. "Your current living conditions, combined with the recent incidents at Sophia's school, have raised serious concerns. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you." Elena's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of her kitchen table, the same table where she and her 6-year-old daughter ate cereal for dinner 3 nights a week because it was all they could afford. The apartment was small, barely 500 square feet in Chicago's poorest neighborhood, but it was clean. God, she made sure it was always clean. "The mold situation has been reported," Patricia continued, glancing around the studio apartment with barely concealed judgment. "The landlord confirmed he's received multiple complaints about repairs you've requested that remain unaddressed. The building has code violations dating back 2 years. I've reported everything." Elena's voice cracked. She hated how weak she sounded, how desperate. "Mr. Castellano won't fix anything. I've called, I've written letters, I've gone to his office. He just ignores me. Be that as it may, the environment is unsuitable for a child." Patricia made another note. Additionally, Sophia's teacher reported that she came to school with the same clothes 3 days in a row last month. She also mentioned that Sophia has been falling asleep in class and that her lunch account has been depleted since September. Each word was a knife. Elena felt them all. "I work 2 jobs, she whispered, tears burning her eyes. "I'm doing everything I can. The clothes, the washing machine in the building has been broken for weeks. I've been hand washing everything in the bathtub, but I had double shifts," and her voice broke completely. I'm trying so hard." Patricia's expression didn't soften. "I understand you're doing your best, Miss Morales, but best intentions don't change the facts. A child needs stability, proper nutrition, adequate housing. The system exists to protect children who aren't receiving these basic necessities. You can't take her." The words exploded from Elena's chest. "Please. She's everything. She's all I have. I'll fix everything. I'll find a new apartment. I'll work more hours. Just please don't take my baby." "The hearing is scheduled for Friday at 9 a.m. Patricia stood, smoothing her expensive skirt. "Until then, Sophia can remain in your care, but I'll be conducting a follow-up visit Wednesday afternoon. I suggest you use that time wisely." She left, taking all the oxygen in the room with her. Elena sat frozen at the table for what might have been minutes or hours. The afternoon sun slanted through the grimy window, illuminating every crack in the plaster, every water stain on the ceiling, every failure that now threatened to cost her everything that mattered. The door to the bedroom, really just a curtained alcove, rustled. Sophia emerged, her dark curls tangled from her nap, clutching the stuffed rabbit that Elena had sewn from old sweaters because new toys were an impossible luxury. "Mama?" Her voice was small, uncertain. She'd heard everything. Of course she'd heard everything. The apartment was too small for secrets. Elena opened her arms, and Sophia ran into them, her small body fitting perfectly against her mother's chest the way she had since she was born. 6 years of this fierce, overwhelming love. 6 years of fighting and struggling and choosing between electricity and groceries, between rent and medicine, between dignity and survival. "Are they going to take me away?" Sophia whispered against Elena's neck. "No, baby." Elena held her tighter, breathing in the strawberry scent of the dollar store shampoo she'd stretched to last 3 weeks. "No one's taking you anywhere. Mama's going to fix this." But even as she said the words, Elena had no idea how. She'd been 17 when Sophia was born. 17, alone and terrified, abandoned by the boy who'd promised forever, and parents who'd chosen their reputation over their daughter. She'd dropped out of high school 2 months before graduation and taken the first job she could find, night shift at a 24-hour laundromat in a neighborhood where people didn't ask questions. 6 years later, she had 2 jobs: days at Sacred Heart Hospital as a cleaning technician, mopping floors and emptying trash in a place where people got saved while she scrubbed their blood off, the linoleum. Nights at Rosario's, a family restaurant on the south side, waiting tables for tips that barely covered Sophia's after-school program. She'd gotten her GED. She'd taken online classes when she could afford the community college fees. She'd done everything right, or at least everything she knew how to do. And it still wasn't enough. Wednesday afternoon arrived like an execution date. Elena had used her lunch break Tuesday to beg Mr. Castellano one more time to fix the apartment. He'd laughed in her face, told her if she didn't like it she could leave, knowing she had nowhere else to go. She'd spent Tuesday night scrubbing the apartment until her hands bled, trying to make poverty look respectable. Sophia sat on the lumpy couch doing homework, her little face scrunched in concentration as she practiced her letters. She was smart, so smart it hurt. Her teacher had said she was reading at a third-grade level. She loved books, devoured every one Elena could get from the day. Library, treating each one like treasure. The knock came at exactly 2 p.m. Patricia Hartwell, punctual as death. Miss Morales. No warmth, no hope. Elena led her through the apartment that somehow looked worse despite hours of cleaning. The mold had spread since Monday. A new leak had appeared in the bathroom ceiling. The radiator clanked and hissed but produced barely any heat. And November in Chicago wasn't forgiving. Patricia took photographs, made notes, asked questions Elena couldn't answer in any way that mattered. The hearing is in 48 hours, Patricia said finally. I'll be recommending temporary removal, pending a full investigation and assessment of alternative housing arrangements. Please. Elena heard herself begging and didn't care anymore. Pride was a luxury she'd burned through years ago. Give me more time. 1 more week. I'll find something. I'll fix this. The system doesn't work on maybes, Miss Morales. Patricia's voice held a hint of something that might have been pity or might have been satisfaction. Children need certainty. After she left, Elena sat Sophia down at the table. Her daughter's eyes were huge, dark pools of fear that no 6-year-old should have to feel. Baby, listen to me. Elena cupped Sophia's face in her hands. No matter what happens, you remember that Mama loves you more than anything in the whole world, okay? More than stars, more than the ocean, more than every good thing that ever existed. I don't want to go, Mama. Tears streamed down Sophia's cheeks. I want to stay with you. I know, baby. I know. Elena pulled her close, memorizing the weight of her, the warmth, the way her small heart beat against Elena's chest. Mama's going to fight for you, I promise. But promises meant nothing against a system designed to measure worth in square footage and bank accounts. Thursday morning, Elena called in sick to both jobs. She couldn't afford to lose either position. But she couldn't afford to lose her daughter more. She spent the morning on her phone, calling every legal aid office, every assistance program, every organization that claimed to help single mothers. Most didn't answer. Those that did told her the same thing. Wait lists, insufficient resources, call back in 6 weeks, 3 months, next year. One lawyer listened to her entire story before delivering the truth. Miss Morales, I'm going to be honest with you. Unless you can demonstrate immediate, significant improvement in your housing situation, the judge will likely rule in favor of temporary removal. The system is overwhelmed. Foster care is overflowing. But mold exposure, inadequate heating, code violations, these are clear-cut issues. I'm sorry. Elena thanked her and hung up. Then she sat on her bed and cried until there was nothing left. She was washing her face in the tiny bathroom, trying to pull herself together before picking up Sophia from school, when she heard shouting in the hallway. Not unusual in this building. Fights and arguments were part of the soundtrack of poverty. But then came the crash. Something heavy, hitting a wall. A woman screaming. Elena froze, torn between self-preservation and the instinct to help. The screaming continued, pleading now, begging. She opened her door a crack. 3 apartments down. A man had Mrs. Chen pinned against the wall. Mrs. Chen, 70 years old, who always smiled at Sophia in the elevator. The man was young, 20s maybe, his face twisted with rage as he shook her. Where's the rent, old woman? Mr. Castellano wants his money. I paid. Mrs. Chen's voice was high with terror. I paid last week. I have the receipt. Not according to him. The man grabbed the doorframe, started to force his way into her apartment. So either you pay again, or we have a problem. Elena's hands trembled. She should close her door. Mind her business. She had enough problems without. The man shoved Mrs. Chen hard. She fell. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. her cry of pain cutting through Elena like glass. "Stop!" The word was out before Elena could stop it. She stepped into the hallway, her heart hammering. "Leave her alone." The man turned. His eyes were cold, calculating. "This doesn't concern you, sweetheart. Go back inside before you get hurt." "She's an old woman." Elena kept her voice steady, even though every instinct screamed at her to run. "You want money? Fine. How much?" 1,800. 1,800. A cruel smile. "You got $1,800? Elena's stomach dropped. She had exactly $217 to her name. "I'll get it. Just leave her alone." "Sure you will." The man laughed, cruel and dismissive. He moved toward Elena now, backing her against her own door. "You know what? Maybe we can work out another arrangement. You're prettier than the old lady. I bet Mr. Castellano would accept." "Is there a problem here?" The voice came from the stairwell, low, controlled, carrying an authority that made Elena's skin prickle with awareness. Everyone turned. The man in the stairwell was tall, maybe 6'1", with dark hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone by someone who understood both beauty and brutality. He wore an expensive charcoal suit that was completely out of place in this building, and his dark eyes took in the scene with the kind of assessment that missed nothing. Castellano's thug went pale. "Mr. Navarro, we weren't expecting, clearly." The man Navarro walked forward with the casual confidence of someone who'd never had to question whether people would move out of his way. They always did. "Vittorio, isn't it? You're one of Castellano's collection specialists." "Yes, sir. Just doing my job, sir." "Your job." Navarro's gaze moved to Mrs. Chen, still crumpled on the floor, then to Elena pressed against her door, then back to Vittorio. "Your job is to terrorize elderly women and threaten young mothers? She owes money. They both do. You were just leaving. It wasn't a question. And you're going to tell Castellano that if I hear about him harassing tenants in this building again, we're going to have a conversation he won't enjoy." Vittorio's face went from pale to gray. "Sir, Mr. Castellano owns this building. He has a right to, does he?" Navarro's voice dropped to something quiet and infinitely more dangerous. "Because I was under the impression that I owned 70% of the property management company that holds the lease on this building, which makes me very interested in how my tenants are being treated." The silence that followed could have shattered glass. Vittorio backed toward the stairs. "I'll relay the message, sir." "You do that." Navarro watched him flee, then turned to Mrs. Chen. His expression softened fractionally. "Are you hurt?" Mrs. Chen shook her head, but Elena saw her wince as she tried to stand. Elena moved without thinking, helping, the older woman to her feet, supporting her weight. "Thank you," Mrs. Chen whispered. "Thank you both. Get inside," Elena said gently. "Lock your door. I'll check on you later." After Mrs. Chen disappeared into her apartment, Elena became acutely aware that she was alone in the hallway with a man whose presence made the air feel heavier. She'd lived in this neighborhood long enough to recognize power when she saw it. This man wasn't just wealthy. He was dangerous. "Thank you," she made herself say, "for helping her. You were very brave." Navarro's dark eyes studied her with an intensity that made her want to look away. She didn't. Also very stupid. Vittorio has a history of violence. You could have been seriously hurt. She needed help. And you need help. It wasn't a question. Navarro gestured to her apartment door, still half open. "May I?" Every instinct screamed that letting this man into her home was a terrible idea, but something in his expression, not pity, but curiosity maybe, or interest, made her step aside. He walked in, and the tiny apartment seemed to shrink further. His presence filled the space, made the poverty more obvious. Elena saw him take in everything: the peeling paint, the mold blooming in the corner, the leak stains, the radiator that clanked uselessly. "How long have you lived here?" he asked. 3 years. "And Castellano has refused to make repairs? He says if I don't like it, I can leave." "Huh." Elena crossed her arms, defensive. "I can't afford to leave. This is the cheapest place I could find that would take me without references or credit checks." Navarro moved to the window, looked out at the view of nothing, just another crumbling building across an alley filled with trash. "You have a child." It wasn't a question, but Elena answered anyway. "My daughter, Sophia. She's 6. And where is she now?" "School. I pick her up at 3. Navarro checked his watch. It was 2:40. He pulled out his phone, made a brief call. Marcus, I need information on a property at. He rattled off the address. Who owns it? Current code violations. Tenant complaints. 10 minutes. He hung up and turned back to Elena. Why did you help Mrs. Chen? The question caught her off guard. Because she needed help. Because it was wrong. Most people in this building heard what was happening. No one else opened their door. Most people in this building have enough problems of their own. Elena's voice came out sharper than intended. Look, I appreciate what you did out there, but I don't know who you are or what you want, and I need to pick up my daughter soon, so, Dominic Navarro. He extended his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Elena shook it. His grip was firm, warm. I own several businesses in Chicago. Real estate development, primarily. But I have diverse interests. Elena Morales. She pulled her hand back. I clean hospital floors and wait tables, so I'm not sure what you're doing here, Mr. Navarro. His phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned, then showed her the screen. It was a detailed report on the building code violations dating back 5 years, dozens of tenant complaints, inspections that had somehow never resulted in enforcement. Castellano has been bribing inspectors, Navarro said quietly. He owns 4 buildings in this neighborhood, all in similar condition. He targets tenants who can't fight back people without legal status, criminal records, bad credit, people who have nowhere else to go. Elena's throat tightened. Sounds about right. You're facing an emergency hearing tomorrow. Child Protective Services is attempting to remove your daughter based on living conditions. The blood drained from Elena's face. How do you... I make it my business to know what happens in my investments. Navarro pocketed his phone. I saw the social worker leaving earlier this week. I made inquiries. This isn't your investment. Elena's voice rose, fear making her reckless. This is my life, my daughter's life, and unless you can fix it in the next 12 hours, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave me alone to figure out what I'm going to do. She was shaking now, the adrenaline from the hallway confrontation combining with 3 days of terror to make her feel like she was flying apart. Tears burned her eyes. She turned away, not wanting him to see her break down. Miss Morales. Navarro's voice had softened. Elena, look at me. She didn't want to, but something in his tone made her turn. I can fix this, he said simply. 1 phone call. But you need to trust me. I don't even know you. No, you don't. He pulled out a business card, set it on the table. But you helped someone who needed it without thinking about the cost to yourself. That tells me something about who you are, and I'm offering to help you the same way. Why? The question came out broken. People like you don't help people like me, not without wanting something. Navarro was quiet for a long moment. My sister had a daughter, he said finally. When things went bad, when she had nowhere else to turn, no one helped her. The system failed her. I failed her. By the time I was in a position to do something, it was too late. The grief in his voice was real, raw. Elena recognized it because she lived with her own version every day, the fear that one day she'd look back and realize all her fighting hadn't been enough. I can't give you your daughter back, Navarro continued, but I can help you keep yours, if you'll let me. Elena looked at the business card. Dominic Navarro, President, Navarro Development Group. A phone number. Nothing else. 1 phone call, she whispered. That's all it takes? 1 phone call, he confirmed. Tomorrow morning, at your hearing, you'll have legal representation. You'll have documentation showing that you've secured new housing in a safe, up-to-code building. You'll have character, references, and proof of stable employment with benefits. The social worker's concerns will be addressed. Your daughter stays with you. It sounded impossible. It sounded like a fairy tale. It also sounded like the only chance she had. What do you want in return? Because there was always a cost. Always. Navarro smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. I want you to keep being the kind of person who opens their door when someone needs help. That's all. Elena stared at him, searching for the lie, the catch, the trap. But all she saw was a man who'd once lost someone he loved and was trying to make it mean something. Okay, she breathed. Okay, help us. Navarro pulled out his phone. Made one call. Spoke for less than 30 seconds, though Elena couldn't make out the words. Then he hung up and looked at her. It's done. You'll receive a call within the hour with details. The hearing tomorrow is at 9? Yes. My lawyer will meet you there at 8:30. Her name is Rebecca Thorne. She's the best family law attorney in Illinois. He moved toward the door, then paused. Your daughter, Sophia. What's she like? The question surprised her. She's everything, Elena said softly. She's smart and funny and kind. She wants to be a veterinarian because she thinks animals need protecting. She reads at 3 grades above her level. She memorizes entire books and acts them out with her stuffed animals. Her voice broke. She's the best thing I ever did. Navarro nodded slowly. Then she's worth fighting for. And you won't fight alone. After he left, Elena sank onto the couch, her entire body shaking. The apartment felt different somehow, like reality had tilted, and she didn't trust the ground beneath her feet. Her phone rang. A woman with a crisp, professional voice explained that an apartment had been secured for her 2 bedrooms, on the north side, in a building with on-site security and maintenance. Move-in would be handled by a service. Her hospital position had been converted to full-time with benefits after a generous donation to Sacred Heart's renovation fund. Everything was handled. Who paid for this? Elena whispered. All expenses have been covered by the Navarro Foundation, the woman said. You'll receive documentation for tomorrow's hearing. Is there anything else you need? Elena thought of Sophia's threadbare clothes, the broken washing machine, the empty lunch account. No, she said softly. Thank you. But after she hung up, she sat holding her phone and wondering what kind of man could change someone's entire life with one phone call, and what it would cost when he finally asked for payment. The courtroom smelled like old wood and broken promises. Elena sat in the front row, her hands clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles had gone white. Sophia sat beside her, wearing a new dress that had appeared in a shopping bag outside their apartment door that morning. Soft, blue cotton with small white flowers, paired with shoes that actually fit, and a warm coat that didn't have holes in the pockets. Elena had cried when she'd opened the bag, not just because of the clothes, though they were beautiful in their simplicity, but because someone had paid attention, had noticed that Sophia needed these things, had cared enough to provide them. The lawyer Rebecca Thorne sat on Elena's other side, reviewing documents with the calm efficiency of someone who'd won battles in rooms like this 1,000 times before. She was in her 50s, with steel gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that missed nothing. When she'd introduced herself at 8:30, she'd taken one look at Elena's terrified face and said, You're going to be fine. I don't lose. Patricia Hartwell sat across the aisle with the state's attorney, their expressions professionally neutral but carrying the weight of institutional power. They had the system behind them. They had precedent and policy, and 100 good reasons why children like Sophia were better off removed from mothers like Elena. But Elena had Rebecca Thorne, and she had Dominic Navarro's phone call. She'd barely slept. All night, she'd expected reality to reassert itself, for someone to call and say there'd been a mistake, that fairy godmothers didn't exist in real life, that women like her didn't get rescued by men in expensive suits who made problems disappear. But the morning had come, and the promises had held. Rebecca had arrived with files an inch thick. Documentation, proof. Evidence that Elena Morales was exactly what she'd always been, a good mother doing her best in impossible circumstances. The difference was that now, the circumstances weren't impossible anymore. All rise. The bailiff's voice cut through Elena's spiraling thoughts. The Honorable Judge Catherine Morrison presiding. Judge Morrison was a black woman in her 60s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She settled behind the bench, adjusted her glasses, and opened the file in front of her. Case number 2024JD7733, Illinois Department of Children and Family Services versus Elena Morales, regarding the welfare of minor child Sophia Morales, age 6. She looked up. Miss Hartwell, you filed this emergency petition. Please present your concerns. Patricia stood, smoothing her skirt. Your Honor, our investigation revealed that Miss Morales and her daughter reside in substandard housing with significant code violations, including mold exposure, inadequate heating, and structural issues. The child has exhibited signs of neglect, wearing soiled clothing to school, falling asleep in class due to inadequate nutrition, and displaying behavioral changes consistent with environmental stress. Each word was a knife. Elena felt Sophia press closer against her side. Additionally, Patricia continued, Miss Morales works 2 low-wage positions with irregular hours, resulting in inadequate supervision of the minor child. While we acknowledge Miss Morales's efforts, good intentions cannot substitute for stable, safe living conditions. We recommend temporary removal pending further evaluation and Miss Morales's demonstration of improved circumstances. Judge Morrison made notes, her expression unreadable. Miss Thorne, I see you're representing Miss Morales. This is unusual. Family court appointments typically take weeks. Rebecca stood, and somehow the entire courtroom seemed to snap to attention. Your Honor, I was retained privately yesterday. I've had limited time to prepare, but the facts speak clearly. May I approach? Please. Rebecca walked forward with 3 thick folders, handed one to the judge and one to Patricia. Elena watched Patricia's face go from confident to confused to something that might have been anger. Your Honor. Rebecca's voice carried the ring of absolute certainty. The concerns raised by DCFS are based on circumstances that no longer exist. As of yesterday afternoon, Miss Morales has secured new housing in a fully renovated, code-compliant building at 847 North Ashland Avenue. I've included the lease agreement, building inspection reports from last month, and photographs of the 2-bedroom apartment. She pulled out a document. Additionally, Miss Morales's employment situation has stabilized. Sacred Heart Hospital has converted her position to full-time with comprehensive benefits, including health insurance for both her and Sophia. Her previous second job at Rosario's restaurant is no longer necessary. I've included the employment contract and benefits documentation. Patricia was flipping through her folder, her expression darkening. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. These changes occurred within 24 hours of our investigation. The timing is suspicious. The timing, Rebecca said coolly, is what happens when someone with resources actually helps instead of simply documenting failure. Miss Morales has been begging her previous landlord for repairs for 3 years. She filed 17 formal complaints with the city, all of which were ignored due to corruption we're currently investigating separately. Judge Morrison looked up sharply. Corruption? Building Inspector Thomas Riley has been accepting bribes from landlord Marcus Castellano to overlook code violations in 4 buildings housing predominantly immigrant and low-income tenants. The FBI opened an investigation yesterday morning. I've included the preliminary findings. Rebecca's voice hardened. Miss Morales wasn't failing her daughter. The system was failing both of them. The judge read through the documents in silence. Elena could hear her own heartbeat, feel Sophia's small hand gripping hers. Miss Hartwell, Judge Morrison said finally, did your investigation include any evidence of abuse or neglect beyond the housing conditions? Patricia hesitated. No, Your Honor. Miss Morales has never been violent or neglectful in her direct care of the child. Sophia is well-adjusted, performing above grade level academically, and clearly bonded with her mother. The concerns were purely environmental. Environmental concerns that have now been addressed. The judge looked at Elena directly for the first time. Miss Morales, please stand. Elena's legs barely held her. She stood, pulling Sophia up with her. I've read Miss Thorne's documentation, Judge Morrison said. I've also read the social worker's reports. You've been working 2 jobs while raising your daughter alone. You've maintained her school attendance and medical appointments despite significant obstacles. You've fought for better housing through proper channels, only to be systematically ignored. She paused. That doesn't sound like neglect to me. That sounds like a mother doing everything humanly possible with insufficient resources. Elena's eyes burned with tears. However, the judge continued, I am concerned about the sudden nature of these improvements. Miss Thorne, who facilitated this housing arrangement? Rebecca didn't hesitate. The Navarro Foundation, Your Honor, a charitable organization that assists single parents in crisis. They have a particular focus on families trapped in predatory housing situations. It wasn't exactly a lie. Elena had Googled the foundation last night. It existed. It did help families. The fact that it was entirely funded by Dominic Navarro wasn't mentioned on the website, but it wasn't hidden either. I want a home visit, Judge Morrison said. Miss Hartwell, you'll conduct an inspection of the new residence within 72 hours and file a report. If conditions are as represented, and if Miss Morales maintains stable employment and housing for the next 6 months, This case will be dismissed. She looked at Elena. Can you do that? Yes, Your Honor. Elena's voice shook. Yes, I promise. Then Sophia remains in your custody. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down like a starting gun. Elena collapsed back into her seat, pulling Sophia into her arms, unable to stop the tears that had been building for days. Mama? Sophia's voice was muffled against her shoulder. Do I get to stay? Yes, baby. Elena kissed her daughter's hair, her face, breathing in the strawberry shampoo. Yes, you get to stay. We get to stay together. Rebecca gathered her files with the satisfaction of someone who'd known the outcome before walking in. The moving company will transfer your belongings this afternoon. I took the liberty of arranging for new furniture as well. Your previous items showed signs of bedbug infestation that we can't risk transferring to the new apartment. Elena looked up at her, overwhelmed. I don't know how to thank you, or how to pay for any of this. The Navarro Foundation covers all costs for families they assist. Rebecca's voice softened fractionally. Your only job is to take care of your daughter and rebuild your life. Can you do that? Yes, I can do that. After Rebecca left to file the final paperwork, Elena and Sophia walked out of the courthouse into November sunshine that felt like a benediction. The world looked different, sounded different, like she'd been living underwater and had finally broken the surface. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Congratulations. The apartment keys are with the building manager. His name is Marco. He'll be expecting you. The furniture arrives at 2 p.m. Take your daughter somewhere nice for lunch. You've earned it. No signature. But Elena knew who it was from. She typed back with shaking fingers. Thank you. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. The response came immediately. You already have. You showed up. You fought. That's all anyone can ask. The apartment at 847 North Ashland Avenue wasn't just better than their previous place. It was a miracle rendered in drywall and hardwood floors. 2 bedrooms, both with actual doors and windows that locked. A kitchen with appliances that worked, counters without stains, cabinets that closed properly, a bathroom with a shower that had water pressure and tiles that weren't cracked, a living room large enough for a couch and a table, with windows that let in actual sunlight. Sophia ran from room to room, her delighted laughter echoing off walls that didn't have mold blooming in the corners. Mama, look! I have my own room. And there's a closet. A real closet. Elena stood in the living room, looking around at the space that was now theirs, and couldn't stop crying. Happy tears this time. Grateful tears. The kind of tears that came from being given something you'd stopped believing you deserved. The furniture arrived at exactly 2 p.m. Not just furniture. Beautiful furniture, a couch in soft gray fabric, a dining table with 4 chairs, beds with real mattresses, not the broken futon and air mattress they'd been using, lamps and curtains and rugs that made the space feel like a home instead of just somewhere to sleep. The movers assembled everything with quiet efficiency while Sophia directed them with 6-year-old authority about where her bed should go and which wall needed her drawings displayed. Elena watched her daughter bloom in real time. Watched the stress lines smooth from her small face, watched her move without the careful quietness that came from living in a place where everything could break. By 5 p.m., they were moved in. By 6, Elena had made actual dinner in her actual kitchen, just pasta, with store-bought sauce. But it felt like a feast. They ate at their new table, in their new apartment, and Elena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Her phone rang as she was putting Sophia to bed. A process that now involved actual bedtime stories in an actual bedroom with an actual door that closed. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello? Miss Morales. It's Dominic Navarro. Elena's heart rate picked up. She stepped into the hallway, closing Sophia's door gently. Mr. Navarro, I thank you. I don't have words for what you've done. You don't need words. His voice was warm, lacking the formal distance from their first meeting. I wanted to make sure the apartment met your needs. If there's anything missing, anything that needs adjustment, it's perfect. Elena's voice cracked. It's more than perfect. It's everything. The furniture, the location, the school is only 3 blocks away. I don't understand how you did all this so fast. Money and leverage. Simple. Direct. The building owner owed me a favor. The furniture store makes regular deliveries for my properties. It's not magic, Elena. It's just resources applied efficiently. The way he said her name, Elena, not Miss Morales, made something flutter in her chest. She ignored it. Still, she said, it's more than anyone's ever done for me. For us. Silence on the line. Then, have you eaten? The question caught her off guard. I made dinner for Sophia. Pasta. And for yourself? Elena looked down at herself. She'd lost weight over the past months. Too stressed to eat. Too busy to care. I'm fine. That's not what I asked. His voice carried a hint of amusement. There's a restaurant 2 blocks from your building. Giordano's. They have the best deep dish pizza in Chicago. I'm sending a delivery. What does Sophia like? Mr. Navarro, you don't have to, Dominic, and I know I don't have to, answer the question. Something about the gentle command in his voice made her smile despite herself. Pepperoni, extra cheese. She's 6, it's basically the law. And you? I'm really not, Elena. Patient, firm. What do you like on your pizza? She surrendered. Mushrooms and sausage. But honestly, you've already... 45 minutes. Make sure you eat. He hung up before she could protest further. Elena stared at her phone, torn between gratitude and confusion, and something else she couldn't quite name. Men like Dominic Navarro didn't send pizza to single mothers. They didn't make phone calls that rearranged reality. They didn't check in to make sure you'd eaten dinner. Unless they wanted something. But what could she possibly have that a man like him would want? The pizza arrived in exactly 45 minutes, delivered by a nervous-looking teenager who refused to take her money, stammering that it was already paid for with a generous tip. Elena and Sophia ate until they were stuffed, and for the first time in months, Elena went to bed with a full stomach and a quiet mind. The home visit happened on Monday morning. Patricia Hartwell arrived with her clipboard and camera, her expression professionally neutral, but with an edge of disappointment that the apartment was exactly as documented. Clean, safe, warm, everything a child needed. She took photos, made notes, asked questions. Elena answered honestly. Sophia showed her the new bedroom with pride, pointing out her books arranged on the shelf and the stuffed animals lined up on her bed. The court will receive my report by end of business, Patricia said at the door. Her voice was stiff, formal. I expect the case will be closed within the month. Thank you, Elena said, because she'd been raised to be polite even to people who'd tried to take everything from her. Patricia paused, something flickering across her face that might have been regret, or might have been resentment. You're very lucky, Miss Morales. Most families in your situation don't get miracle interventions. No, Elena agreed quietly. They don't, which means the system is broken, not the families. Patricia left without responding. Elena went back to work at Sacred Heart on Tuesday. The full-time position came with actual benefits, health insurance, paid sick leave, a retirement plan she could barely comprehend. Her supervisor pulled her aside during her first shift. I wanted you to know, Maria said, a kind woman in her 50s who'd always treated Elena with respect. The donation that funded your position, it also funded 3 others. Full-time conversions for cleaning staff who'd been asking for years. The board had always said there wasn't money. She smiled. Apparently there was. Someone just needed to ask the right person. Elena felt something shift in her chest. Dominic hadn't just helped her. He'd helped others, made real, lasting change that went beyond one phone call. She thought about that as she mopped floors, as she ate lunch in the break room, as she picked up Sophia from school and walked her home to their beautiful apartment. Thought about a man who had the power to change lives and chose to use it. Thought about what it meant that he'd chosen her. The first month passed in a blur of adjustment. Sophia thrived in ways that broke Elena's heart with gratitude, sleeping through the night without nightmares, laughing more, bringing home art projects that went on the refrigerator instead of being thrown away because there was no room. She made friends at school, stopped falling asleep in class, started talking about the future with the confidence of a child who believed she had one. Elena learned the rhythms of their new life, work that didn't exhaust her to the breaking point, evenings spent actually being present with her daughter instead of collapsed in survival mode, the simple pleasure of having enough food, enough heat, enough space to breathe. She didn't hear from Dominic for 3 weeks. Started to think maybe that was it, a one-time intervention, a charitable act that required nothing further. started to relax into the idea that she could just be grateful and move forward. Then he showed up at the hospital. Elena was emptying trash bins in the cardiac wing when she saw him at the nurse's station, speaking quietly with the head nurse. He wore another expensive suit, charcoal gray with a blue tie, and he looked like he'd stepped out of a different world entirely. Several nurses were staring. One was blatantly taking a photo with her phone. Elena's first instinct was to hide. She was wearing her cleaning uniform, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, no makeup because she'd stopped bothering years ago. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who mopped floors for a living. But he turned, saw her, and smiled. Not the polite smile of a rich man acknowledging the help. A real smile, warm and genuine, that reached his dark eyes and made them soften. He walked toward her, and Elena was suddenly acutely aware of every eye in the hallway following his movement. "Elena," he stopped a respectful distance away. "I hope I'm not interrupting your work." "I know. I'm working, but..." She felt her cheeks heat. "What are you doing here?" "I had a meeting with the hospital administration about another donation." He gestured vaguely. "Expansion of the pediatric wing. I remembered you worked here and thought I'd say hello. Check in. Make sure everything's still going well. Everything's perfect." Elena gripped her trash bag tighter, armor against the vulnerability of standing in front of him like this. "The apartment is amazing. Sophia's doing so well in school. My job is I can't thank you enough for what you've done." "I'm glad." He glanced at the nurses openly watching them. "Do you have a break coming up? Maybe we could grab coffee?" Elena checked her watch. She had 15 minutes. The cafeteria? Lead the way. They walked in silence through the hospital corridors, Elena acutely conscious of the whispers following them. She grabbed coffee from the machine, the cheap, terrible hospital kind, and they sat at a corner table away from the lunch rush. "How's Sophia?" Dominic asked, doctoring his coffee with cream and sugar like the taste didn't bother him. "She's incredible." Elena couldn't help the smile that took over her face. She made the honor roll last week. Her teacher says she's reading at a 4th grade level now. She joined the after-school art program and She stopped, suddenly self-conscious. "Sorry, I'm rambling." "Don't apologize." Dominic's expression was soft. "Tell me about her. What's she interested in?" So Elena did. Told him about Sophia's obsession with animals, her dream of becoming a veterinarian, the way she'd set up an elaborate hospital for her stuffed animals and made charts tracking their imaginary illnesses. Told him about her daughter's laugh, her kindness, the way she'd started bringing extra snacks to school to share with a classmate whose family was struggling. "She sounds remarkable," Dominic said when Elena finally ran out of words. "Like her mother." Elena looked down at her coffee, unsure how to respond to that. "There's something I wanted to ask you," Dominic said after a moment. "The case Patricia Hartwell filed her final report last week. Judge Morrison dismissed it. You're clear. No more oversight, no more worry." Relief flooded through Elena so powerfully it was almost dizzying. "Thank God. But that means the immediate crisis is over." Dominic's voice was careful. "And I want to make sure you're set up for long-term stability, not just short-term relief. The apartment is yours for as long as you need it. The lease is paid through the year with an option to renew. Your job is secure, but I'd like to offer something additional." Elena's guard went up. "What kind of something?" "My foundation runs a scholarship program, full ride to community college, then transfer support to a 4-year institution. You mentioned wanting to finish your education. I'd like to offer you a spot." Elena stared at him. "You're offering to pay for college?" "The foundation is offering. You'd need to apply, but given your circumstances and your work ethic, you'd be an ideal candidate." He pulled out a brochure, slid it across the table. "Think about it. No pressure, but you're smart, dedicated, and you deserve the chance to build the life you want, not just survive the one you have." The brochure showed smiling students, degree programs, promises of futures that had always seemed impossible. Elena touched it like it might dissolve under her fingers. "Why?" The question came out broken. "Why are you doing all this? The apartment, the job, now this, what do you want from me?" Dominic was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight of grief that Elena recognized. "I told you about my sister," he said finally. "What I didn't tell you was that she had a daughter too. Sophia with an F. She was 5 when my sister died. I wasn't in her life then. I was building my business, making money, thinking that's what mattered. By the time I had resources, Sophia was already in the system, bounced between foster homes, lost in the cracks. His jaw tightened. I tried to get custody, spent a fortune on lawyers, but I had a record nothing violent, just the stupid mistakes you make when you're young and hungry and willing to bend rules to survive. The courts decided I wasn't suitable. She went to a couple who looked perfect on paper and were nightmares in practice. Elena's heart clenched. By the time I found out what was happening to her, by the time I had enough leverage to force the system to listen, she was 13 and traumatized and angry at the world. Angry at me for not being there when it mattered. Dominic's voice went rough. She ran away at 16. I haven't seen her in 7 years. My people keep tabs, make sure she's alive, but she won't talk to me, won't let me help her. He looked up, and his eyes were haunted. So when I see a woman fighting for her daughter the way you fight for Sophia, when I see a child who deserves better trapped in circumstances beyond her control, I help. Because I couldn't help Sophia, but maybe I can help other kids. Make sure they don't end up lost like she did. Elena's throat was too tight to speak. I don't want anything from you, Dominic said quietly. I just want you and Sophia to have the chance I couldn't give my niece. That's all. The silence between them was heavy with shared understanding. Two people who knew what it meant to love a child so much it hurt, to fight battles that shouldn't need fighting, to carry guilt for things beyond their control. I'll think about the scholarship, Elena said finally. Thank you for telling me, for trusting me with that. Thank you for letting me help. He stood, checked his watch. Your break is almost up. I should let you get back to work. Elena walked him to the elevator. As the doors opened, he turned back. Elena, you and Sophia, you're both invited to Thanksgiving dinner. I host one every year for foundation families. Nothing formal, just food and company. It's at my house. I'd like you to come. I don't know. Think about it, he said as he stepped into the elevator. No pressure, but you shouldn't be alone on holidays. Nobody should. The doors closed before Elena could respond. She stood there for a long moment, her coffee going cold in her hand, wondering how a chance encounter in a hallway had led to this. A man who saw her as more than a charity case, who treated her daughter's well-being like it mattered, who carried his own grief but transformed it into helping others. A man who was becoming dangerously important to her in ways that had nothing to do with apartments or money or miracles. And that terrified her more than any social worker ever had. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and crystalline. Chicago wrapped in the kind of November chill that promised snow but hadn't delivered yet. Elena stood in front of her closet, her actual closet, in her actual bedroom, and realized she had nothing appropriate to wear to a wealthy man's home for dinner. Everything she owned was utilitarian. Work uniforms, thrift store jeans, sweaters held together by determination. Nothing that said, I belong in a place where people host foundation dinners. Mama, are you nervous? Sophia appeared in the doorway, already dressed in the nice clothes they'd bought for the court hearing. She'd been talking about Thanksgiving dinner for 3 days straight, ever since Elena had finally agreed they'd go. A little, Elena admitted. I don't know what to expect. Mr. Navarro seems nice. Sophia climbed onto Elena's bed, swinging her legs. He helped us. Nice people help people. The simple logic of a 6-year-old. Elena wished the world actually worked that way. She settled on her nicest jeans and a green sweater that didn't have any visible stains or pills. It would have to be enough. They were going as themselves, a single mother and her daughter trying to build a life. Pretending to be something else would be dishonest. The address Dominic had texted led them to Lincoln Park, where the houses stopped being houses and started being estates. Elena's stomach dropped as they approached the correct number, a 3-story brownstone with pristine landscaping and the kind of architecture that whispered old money and established power. Wow, Sophia breathed, pressing her face against the car window of the rideshare Elena had splurged on. It's like a palace. It's just a house, baby. But Elena's voice lacked conviction. A man in his 30s answered the door, Hispanic, with kind eyes and an easy smile. You must be Elena and Sophia. I'm Marco, I manage Mr. Navarro's properties, including your building. Welcome. The interior was exactly what Elena had expected, and somehow worse exposed brick walls, hardwood floors that probably cost more than a car, furniture that looked like it belonged in museums. Everything was tasteful, expensive, intimidating, but it was also warm. A fire crackled in the massive fireplace. Music played softly, something jazzy and relaxed. And there were people. Lots of people. Families with kids, elderly couples, a mix of ages and backgrounds that didn't match the formal setting at all. Mr. Navarro likes to keep things casual, Marco said, reading Elena's expression. Most of the people here are foundation families. Some are employees. A few are old friends. He doesn't believe in formal holiday dinners, says his sister used to hate them. The mention of Dominic's sister made Elena's chest tighten. She scanned the room, looking for him. Sophia, a girl about 9 years old, ran over, all energy and excitement. Want to see the game room? Mr. Navarro has air hockey and arcade games and everything. Sophia looked at Elena with pleading eyes. Go ahead, baby. Stay where I can see you. The girls disappeared into another room filled with the sounds of children playing. Elena stood awkwardly in the entryway, clutching the store-bought pie she'd brought, because showing up empty-handed felt wrong. Elena. She turned. Dominic walked toward her from the kitchen, and Elena's breath caught despite herself. He wore jeans and a dark blue sweater, casual in a way that somehow made him more attractive than the suits. His hair was slightly messed up, and there was flour on his shoulder. You came. His smile was genuine, relieved. I wasn't sure you would. Sophia wouldn't have forgiven me if I'd said no. Elena held out the pie. Pumpkin. From the bakery on the corner. I know it's not much compared to. It's perfect. Dominic took it, his fingers brushing hers briefly. Come on. Let me introduce you to people. The next hour passed in a blur of names and faces. Maria, whose 3 kids were in the game room with Sophia. James and Robert, a couple who ran one of Dominic's community centers. An elderly woman named Rosa, who insisted on hugging Elena and telling her she had good eyes. A group of teenagers who'd graduated from foundation programs and were now in college, home for the holiday. Everyone was warm. Everyone was genuine. And everyone looked at Dominic with a combination of respect and affection that spoke to something deeper than employer-employee relationships or wealthy benefactor dynamics. He saved my business, Marco told Elena, when they ended up in the kitchen together, Marco checking on the turkey while Dominic was pulled into a conversation about basketball with the teenagers. I was going under 5 years ago. Bad investments, worse luck. About to lose everything. Dominic bought my debt, restructured it into something manageable, then hired me to run his properties. Said he needed someone who understood what it meant to fight for something. That sounds like him, Elena said softly. He doesn't just throw money at problems. Marco adjusted the oven temperature. He fixes systems, helps people build actual lives, not just survive crises. Half the people here, he's changed their entire trajectory. He glanced at her. I'm guessing your story is similar? Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. Dinner was chaos in the best way. 3 tables pushed together in the massive dining room, kids squeezed between adults, conversations overlapping, laughter echoing off the high ceilings. Dominic sat at the head of the table, but there was nothing formal about it. He joked with the teenagers, listened patiently to a 5-year-old's elaborate story about dinosaurs, and kept making sure everyone had enough food. Elena found herself seated between Sophia and Rosa, the elderly woman who'd hugged her earlier. Rosa had survived an abusive marriage, homelessness, and the foster system before Dominic's foundation helped her get housing and job training. Now she volunteered at a women's shelter, helping others escape the situations she'd survived. He doesn't like attention for the good he does, Rosa said quietly, watching Dominic explain something to one of the teenagers. Doesn't want press or recognition, just wants to help. That's rare, Mija. Men with money usually want everyone to know how generous they are. Dominic just wants people to be okay. After dinner, while kids played and adults lingered over coffee and pie, Dominic found Elena on the back patio. She'd needed air, needed space from the warmth and acceptance that felt too good to trust. You okay? He joined her at the railing, looking out over the frost-touched garden. Your home is beautiful, Elena said instead of answering. And everyone here, they love you. Really love you. Not just respect or fear or obligation. They're family. Dominic's voice was soft. Not by blood, but by choice. by shared experience. They understand what it means to fight for something better. Elena wrapped her arms around herself against the cold. I don't understand you. What don't you understand? Any of it. You have all this money, all this power. You could do anything, be anything, but you spend your time helping people like me, people the system forgot about. She turned to face him. Why? And don't tell me it's just about your sister. There's something else. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. Inside, someone had started playing piano. Something soft and melancholy that drifted through the windows. My father, he said finally, was a contractor. Good man, honest, worked himself to death trying to provide for us. When he got sick, the medical bills destroyed us. My mother worked 3 jobs and it still wasn't enough. I watched her break herself trying to save him, trying to keep us afloat. His jaw tightened. After he died, I was 17 and angry and desperate. Started working for a man who ran numbers in our neighborhood. Small-time stuff at first, but I was good at it. Good at math, good at reading people, good at staying calm when things got tense. Within 2 years, I was running his operation. Elena's breath caught. This wasn't the story of a legitimate businessman. This was something else. By 25, I'd built my own organization. Protection, loans, development projects that skirted just enough legal lines to be profitable. I told myself I was helping the neighborhood, providing services banks and legitimate businesses wouldn't. And in some ways, I was. I kept things relatively clean, didn't allow drugs or prostitution, settled disputes without violence when possible. He laughed bitter. But I was still a criminal, still making money off people's desperation, still part of a system that chewed people up. My sister, she never knew the details, but she knew enough to be ashamed of me. We fought about it constantly. What changed? Elena whispered. She died. The words were flat, heavy. Car accident. She was driving my niece to school, and a drunk driver ran a red light. Sophia survived. My sister didn't. And suddenly all that money, all that power, it meant nothing. I couldn't save her, couldn't protect her, couldn't even take care of her daughter because the courts looked at my record and said I was unsuitable. He turned to Elena, and his eyes held years of regret. I spent the next 3 years going legitimate, sold my operations to someone who ran them cleaner than I had, used the money to start real businesses, property development, construction, investment, laundered my entire past through legitimate channels and charitable work. The foundation, Elena said, the foundation, started it with Sophia in mind. If I couldn't help her, I'd help other kids like her, other families trapped in impossible situations. His voice softened. But I'm not a good man, Elena. I'm a man trying to be good. There's a difference. Elena thought about that, about the social worker's disdain, the judge's skepticism, the way people like her were always judged for their circumstances, while people like Dominic could buy their way into respectability. You saved us, she said quietly. Whatever you were, whatever you did, you saved my daughter. That makes you good in my book. Even knowing I built this empire on other people's suffering, you're rebuilding it on other people's hope. Elena met his eyes. That counts for something. The air between them felt charged, heavy with things neither was saying. Dominic moved closer, close enough that Elena could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, smell his cologne mixed with wood smoke from the fireplace. Elena, Mama. Sophia burst through the patio door, breathless with excitement. Mr. Navarro has a library, a whole room just for books. Can we see it, please? The moment broke. Dominic stepped back, smiling at Sophia's enthusiasm. Of course. I'll show you both. The library was 2 stories of floor-to-ceiling bookshelves accessible by a rolling ladder. Sophia's eyes went wide as dinner plates. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You like to read? Dominic asked. I love reading. Sophia walked along, the shelves reverently, trailing her fingers over spines. Mama takes me to the library every week. I've read all the books in the kids section twice. Well, you're welcome here anytime. I'll set up a library card system just for you. Take whatever you want. Return them when you're done. He glanced at Elena. For both of you. Elena's throat tightened. You don't have to. I want to. Simple. Direct. Final. Sophia was already pulling books off shelves, building a stack that would take months to read through. Elena watched her daughter happy, excited. dreaming of stories and possibilities, and felt something crack open in her chest. This man had given them more than an apartment or a job. He'd given them hope, given them a future, given them the space to imagine life could be more than just survival. And somewhere in the process, Elena had stopped seeing him as just a benefactor and started seeing him as something else entirely, something dangerous. December arrived with the first snow, and with it, complications Elena hadn't anticipated. Dominic started showing up at the hospital more frequently, always with legitimate business meetings with administrators, donations to discuss, projects to review, but he always found time to stop by, say hello, check in, bring coffee that wasn't terrible, and pastries from a bakery that actually tasted good. The other cleaning staff noticed, started asking questions. Maria, her supervisor, pulled her aside after Dominic's third visit in 2 weeks. "Elena, honey, I need to ask you something. That man Dominic Navarro, what's going on there?" "Nothing." The lie came automatically. "He runs the foundation that helped me. He's just checking in." Maria's expression was skeptical. Men like that don't just check in on cleaning staff, especially not multiple times a week, especially not the way he looks at you. "How does he look at me? Like you're the only person in the room." Maria's voice softened. "Be careful, mija. Men with that much power, they can be generous, but they can also be dangerous." Elena thought about that conversation as she walked home that evening, Sophia's hand in hers. The streets were decorated for Christmas, lights strung between lampposts, storefronts glowing with seasonal cheer. Everything felt different this year, better, but also more fragile, like happiness was something that could be taken away at any moment. Her phone buzzed, a text from Dominic. "Sophia mentioned she's in the school winter concert next week. What day? I'd like to come if that's okay." Elena stared at the message. He wanted to come to Sophia's concert. Like family. Like someone who mattered in their lives. She should say no. Should maintain boundaries. Should remember that this was a business arrangement, dressed up as charity, nothing more. Instead, she texted back. "Tuesday, 7 p.m., Sacred Heart Elementary. You don't have to come." His response was immediate. "I want to. Save me a seat." The concert was everything. Elementary school performances were chaotic, adorable, slightly off-key. Sophia stood in the front row of the second-grade chorus, her face serious with concentration as she sang about snowflakes and reindeer. Elena sat in the audience, phone recording every moment, her heart swelling with the kind of pride that made her eyes sting. And beside her sat Dominic Navarro, dressed down in jeans and a sweater, completely focused on the children on stage. He applauded at all the right moments, laughed at the kindergartners who forgot their lines, and never once checked his phone or looked bored. After the concert, Sophia ran to them both, her face glowing. "Did you see me? Did I do good?" "You were perfect," Elena said, hugging her tight. "You were the best one up there," Dominic added, and Sophia beamed. "Can we get hot chocolate?" Sophia asked, bouncing with residual performance energy. "To celebrate?" Elena hesitated. It was late, and she had work in the morning, but Dominic was already nodding. "I know a place. Best hot chocolate in Chicago. My treat." They ended up at a small cafe 3 blocks from the school, tucked into a corner booth while Sophia demolished hot chocolate with extra marshmallows and told Dominic about every single detail of rehearsals he'd missed. Elena watched them interact. Dominic, giving Sophia his complete attention, asking follow-up questions, treating her like her opinions mattered. The way a father would, the way Sophia's actual father never had. "Your daughter is remarkable," Dominic said after Sophia had finally exhausted her concert recap and moved on to drawing on napkins. "Smart, kind, confident. You've done an incredible job raising her. I've done my best." Elena traced patterns in the condensation on her water glass. "It's been hard, doing it alone, never knowing if I was getting it right." "You're getting it right." His voice was certain. "Look at her. She's happy. She's thriving. That's because of you. It's also because of you." Elena met his eyes. "The apartment, the stability, she's thriving because you gave us a foundation to build on. I can't pretend otherwise." "Then don't." Dominic leaned forward slightly. "Elena, I need to tell you something." Her heart rate picked up. "Okay, these visits, the texts, showing up at your work and Sophia's concert." He paused, seeming to choose words carefully. I'm not doing this just as a foundation director checking on a family we helped. I'm doing it because I want to. Because I look forward to seeing you. Both of you. Because you've become important to me in ways that have nothing to do with charity or guilt or making up for past mistakes. Elena's breath caught. Dominic, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I just need you to know that this, us talking, spending time together, it means something to me. And if it doesn't mean anything, to you, if I'm overstepping, tell me now and I'll back off. I don't want to make you uncomfortable or make you feel like there's any obligation. Elena looked at Sophia, happily drawing what appeared to be a family of snowmen, then back at Dominic, at this man who'd saved them, who showed up, who looked at her like she was more than just a charity case or a responsibility. It means something to me too, she admitted, the words terrifying and liberating at the same time. But I don't know what to do with that. She gestured helplessly. You're you. And I'm just someone who cleans floors for a living. Someone you had to rescue. I don't know how to be around you without feeling like I owe you everything. You don't owe me anything. Dominic's voice was fierce. Not gratitude, not obligation, and certainly not whatever this is between us. If there's something here, it's because we both want it, not because of what I did or what you think you owe. But what is this? But what is this? Elena whispered. What are we doing? I don't know. He smiled, rueful. I haven't felt like this since. He stopped. In a very long time. Maybe we could figure it out together? No pressure, no expectations, just see where it goes? Every logical part of Elena's brain screamed that this was a terrible idea, that getting involved with someone like Dominic was asking for heartbreak, that the power imbalance made any real relationship impossible. But the part of her that had stopped breathing when he walked into Sophia's concert, that looked forward to his texts, that felt seen and valued in his presence, that part wanted to say yes. Okay, she heard herself say. We can try, but slowly. And if it gets complicated, if it affects Sophia negatively in any way, we stop. Dominic agreed immediately. Her well-being comes first, always. Sophia looked up from her drawings. Mama, can Mr. Navarro come to our apartment for dinner sometime? I want to show him my room. Elena and Dominic looked at each other. She saw her own uncertainty reflected in his eyes, mixed with hope and fear and the strange, terrifying sensation of standing at the edge of something that could either save you or destroy you completely. Sure, baby, Elena said finally. We can do that. The dinner invitation happened the following Saturday. Elena spent all morning cleaning an apartment that was already spotless, cooking food she hoped was good enough, second-guessing everything. Sophia helped by making place cards and arranging flowers from the corner store in a mason jar centerpiece. Why are you so nervous, Mama? Sophia asked, watching Elena check the pot roast for the 5th time. Mr. Navarro is nice. I know he's nice. I just want everything to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be us. 6-year-old wisdom. Elena hugged her daughter and tried to calm down. Dominic arrived at exactly 6, carrying a bottle of wine and a bouquet of flowers that probably cost more than Elena's weekly grocery budget. He also brought a gift bag for Sophia, who squealed with delight at the collection of books inside all first editions, all from authors she'd mentioned loving. You remembered, Sophia breathed, clutching the books like treasure. Of course I remembered. Dominic smiled. Important things stick. Dinner was simple pot roast, roasted vegetables, bread Elena had baked that morning. Nothing fancy. But Dominic ate like it was the best meal he'd ever had, asked for seconds, and complimented everything from the seasoning to the presentation. After dinner, Sophia gave him the full apartment tour with the enthusiasm of someone showing off a palace. Dominic admired her drawings displayed on the refrigerator, praised her organized bookshelf, and examined her stuffed animal hospital with appropriate seriousness. This is a good home, he said when they were back in the living room, Sophia settling in, with her new books. Warm, safe, full of love. That's what matters. Elena poured them both coffee, and they sat on the couch while Sophia read nearby. It felt domestic, normal, like this was something they'd done 100 times instead of a first. Can I ask you something? Elena said after a comfortable silence. Anything. Your niece, Sophia, have you heard from her? Is she okay? Dominic's expression clouded. My people keep tabs. She's alive, living in Seattle under a different name, works at a coffee shop, has an apartment. But she won't take my calls. Won't respond to letters. I send money to a trust she can access when she's ready, but she hasn't touched it. She's still angry. She has every right to be. Dominic's voice was heavy with regret. I failed her when she needed me most. No amount of money or belated concern can change that. Elena set down her coffee, turned to face him fully. You were young and dealing with your own trauma. You made mistakes. But you're trying to make it right, even if she can't see it yet. That counts for something. Does it? His eyes met hers. Or am I just salving my conscience by helping other families while my own niece wants nothing to do with me? Both can be true. Elena reached for his hand without thinking, laced her fingers through his. You can be genuinely helping people, and also trying to make up for past regrets. Motivations can be complicated. That doesn't make the good you're doing less real. Dominic looked at their joined hands, then back at her face. How do you do that? Do what? Make everything feel less heavy. Like maybe I'm not just a reformed criminal trying to buy redemption. Because you're not. Elena squeezed his hand. You're a person who made hard choices in impossible circumstances and is now trying to do better. That's not buying redemption. That's just being human. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Dominic lifted their joined hands, pressed a kiss to her knuckles, gentle, reverent, asking permission. Is this okay? He whispered. Elena's heart hammered. She should say no, should pull away, should maintain the boundaries between them. Instead, she leaned closer. Yes, the kiss, when it came, was soft, tentative, nothing demanding or presumptuous, just a question that Elena answered by kissing him back. It tasted like coffee and hope, and the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, she was allowed to want something for herself. Mama? Sophia's voice cut through the moment. They pulled apart to find her standing with a book, her expression curious but not upset. Can you read me this one before bed? Of course, baby. Elena's voice came out slightly breathless. She glanced at Dominic. I should go. I should go. He stood, smoothing his sweater. Thank you for dinner, for letting me into your home. At the door, he paused, looked back at Elena with an expression that made her heart skip. This thing between us, he said quietly. I want to do it right. No rushing, no pressure. I want to earn this. Earn you. After he left, Elena leaned against the closed door, her fingers touching her lips, wondering what she'd just started and whether she was brave enough or foolish enough to see it through. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of carefully managed courtship, coffee dates during Elena's lunch breaks, texts that made her smile, phone calls after Sophia was asleep, where they talked about everything and nothing until Elena's eyes couldn't stay open. Dominic was patient, respectful, never pushed for more than Elena was ready to give, but the tension between them built like a storm, gathering strength, every touch electric, every look weighted with promise. They'd been careful to keep things private. No public displays, no social media, nothing that would invite scrutiny or questions. But people noticed anyway. The hospital staff whispered. Marco made knowing comments. Even Sophia started asking when Mr. Navarro was coming to visit next. Elena knew it couldn't stay secret forever. Knew eventually they'd have to decide what this was and what they wanted it to become. The decision got made for them on a Tuesday afternoon in mid-December. Elena was leaving work when she found Marcus Castellano waiting by her car. Her former landlord looked older, meaner, his expensive suit doing nothing to hide the predatory gleam in his eyes. Miss Morales. His smile was all teeth. We need to talk. Elena's hand tightened on her keys. I have nothing to say to you, but I have plenty to say to you. Castellano leaned against her car, blocking her path. See, I've been hearing interesting things about how you suddenly got a new apartment, a better job, legal representation that made my building issues into a federal investigation. About how all your problems disappeared right after Dominic Navarro took an interest in you. Elena's blood ran cold. Get away from my car. You think you're clever? Sleeping your way into Navarro's bed? Using him to destroy my business? Castellano's voice dripped venom. I've lost 2 buildings to forced sales because of code violations. Violations that were ignored for years until suddenly they mattered. Violations that became federal business because someone with power decided to make them so. You terrorized tenants, Elena said, anger overriding fear. You let children live in dangerous conditions while you lined your pockets. You deserve to lose everything, and you deserve to lose your daughter." The words hit like a physical blow. That's what was supposed to happen. You were supposed to fail, to break, to serve as a lesson to other tenants about what happens when you complain. But Navarro interfered, turned you into his little charity project. He moved closer, and Elena could smell alcohol on his breath. But here's the thing about men like Navarro, they get bored. And when he gets bored with you, when he moves on to his next project, I'll still be here. And I have a very long memory. Is there a problem? The voice came from behind Elena. She turned to see two of Dominic's security team. She recognized them from the Thanksgiving dinner. Large, professional, radiating controlled menace. Castellano paled. "No problem. Just having a conversation." "Conversation's over." The lead security guy, Marcus, she remembered, stepped forward. "Mr. Castellano was just leaving. Weren't you?" Castellano backed away, but his eyes promised retribution. "This isn't finished." After he was gone, Marcus turned to Elena. "Mr. Navarro asked us to keep an eye on you. Castellano's been making noise about revenge. We'll drive you home, make sure everything's secure." Elena wanted to protest, to insist she didn't need protection, but her hands were shaking, and Sophia would be home from school in an hour. "Okay," she whispered. "Thank you." They drove her home in a sleek black SUV, swept the apartment, and stationed themselves in the lobby. Elena called Dominic with trembling fingers. "Castellano confronted me." The words tumbled out. "At the hospital, he made threats. About me, about Sophia." He said, "I know." Dominic's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. "Marcus called me. I'm handling it." "What does that mean?" "Dominic, what are you going to do?" Silence. Then, "Nothing illegal. I promise you that. But Castellano crossed a line, and there are consequences for threatening people under my protection." "I don't want to be someone who needs protection," Elena said, exhaustion and fear making her voice crack. "I don't want Sophia growing up around threats and security teams and men who settle disputes with intimidation." "Neither do I." Dominic's voice softened. "Elena, I need to see you. Can I come over?" "Sophia will be home soon." "I know. I want to talk to both of you. About how we move forward from here. Because things just changed, and we need to decide together what that means." An hour later, Dominic sat at Elena's kitchen table with both of them. Sophia colored quietly while the adults talked, but she was listening. Kids always were. "Castellano is angry because he's losing money and influence," Dominic explained. "The FBI investigation exposed corruption beyond just building codes. Money laundering, tax evasion, connections to organized crime. He's facing serious charges, and he blames you for triggering the scrutiny." "Is he dangerous?" Elena's voice was quiet. "Potentially. But he's also desperate and stupid, which makes him unpredictable." Dominic's jaw tightened. "I have security watching your building, your work, Sophia's school. But that's temporary. Long term, we need a better solution." "What kind of solution?" "Castellano is part of a larger network. People I used to do business with, back when I was running my old operations. They see you as a weakness proof that I've gone soft, that threatening my personal connections can hurt me." He met Elena's eyes. "Which means as long as we're connected, you and Sophia are targets." Elena's stomach dropped. "You're saying we should end this. That being together puts us in danger." "I'm saying we have two choices." Dominic's voice was steady. "We end this now. I ensure you're protected, but we maintain distance, and eventually the attention fades. Or we make it clear that you're under my full protection, that threatening you is the same as threatening me directly, that anyone who touches you or Sophia will face consequences severe enough to make them examples." Elena's hands trembled. "You're talking about making us part of your world. Really part of it." "I'm talking about being honest about what we already are." Dominic reached across the table, but didn't touch her, giving her space to decide. "Elena, I'm not the man I was 5 years ago. I don't run criminal operations anymore. But I still have connections, power, influence in places that matter. That's not going away. And if we're together, that becomes your reality too." "Mama?" Sophia's small voice cut through the tension. "Are we in danger?" Elena's heart broke. She pulled Sophia onto her lap, holding her tight. "No, baby. We're safe. Mr. Navarro is making sure of it." Sophia looked at Dominic with the direct, unflinching assessment only children could manage. Are you going to protect us? Yes, Dominic said simply. If your mother wants me to. Do you love my mama? The question hung in the air. Elena's breath caught. They hadn't used that word, hadn't defined what this was beyond attraction and affection and the terrifying feeling of falling into something neither could control. Dominic's eyes met Elena's. Yes, he said quietly. I do. Elena's vision blurred with tears. Dominic, you don't have to say it back. His voice was gentle. I know this is complicated. I know I'm asking a lot. But you deserve to know where I stand. You and Sophia, you've become my family. The family I choose. The family I want to protect and build a life with, if you'll let me. Sophia looked between them, her child's intuition picking up on things adults tried to hide. I like Mr. Navarro, Mama. He's nice to us, and he makes you smile. Out of the mouths of babes. Elena took a shaky breath. If we do this, if we make this real, make us a real thing, what does that actually look like? Security teams and threats and living in fear? No. Dominic leaned forward. It looks like me making it crystal clear to everyone who matters that you're off limits. It means Castellano and anyone else who thinks they can leverage you against me learns very quickly that it's not worth trying. It means short-term discomfort for long-term security. And if it doesn't work, if someone decides to come after us anyway, then I handle it. His voice went cold, hard, showing glimpses of the man he'd been. I've spent 5 years going legitimate, building a respectable empire, but I remember how to be the other version of myself. And if someone threatens my family, I'll become that person again long enough to make sure they never make that mistake twice. The violence in his words should have scared her. Maybe once it would have. But Elena had lived too long in a world where good intentions meant nothing, where playing by the rules got you evicted and reported to child services while men like Castellano thrived. Sometimes you needed someone who knew how to break rules effectively, someone who had power and wasn't afraid to use it. Okay, she whispered. Okay, we'll try. But if this puts Sophia in danger, I'd walk away before I let anything happen to her. Dominic's voice was fierce. Either of you. I promise you that. Sophia hugged Elena's neck. Can we have hot chocolate while you decide things? The request broke the tension. Elena laughed, watery and relieved, and Dominic smiled. Hot chocolate sounds perfect, he said. As Elena made cocoa and Sophia chattered about her school day, and Dominic's security team maintained watch from the lobby, Elena realized something fundamental had shifted. She'd spent 6 years protecting Sophia alone, fighting alone, surviving alone. Now she had someone who wanted to fight beside her, someone with resources and power, and a willingness to use both on her behalf. It was terrifying. It was overwhelming. It was also, maybe, exactly what they needed. Dominic handled the Castellano situation with the efficiency of someone who'd orchestrated far more complicated operations. Within 48 hours, Castellano was arrested on federal charges. Within a week, he'd taken a plea deal that would put him away for a decade minimum. His network collapsed, associates scrambling to distance themselves or cooperate with investigators. The message was clear. Elena Morales and her daughter were untouchable. Security gradually decreased over the following weeks, from constant surveillance to periodic check-ins to eventually just the comfort of knowing help was a phone call away. Life settled into something approaching normal, if normal included. Dating a man whose name made criminals nervous, and whose foundation work was featured in glowing newspaper profiles. Christmas arrived with the gentlest snowfall Chicago had seen in years. Elena and Sophia spent Christmas Eve at Dominic's house, along with the extended foundation family. Sophia got her own library card in Dominic's collection, an actual brass card with her name engraved. Elena got a small velvet box that made her hands shake. Inside was a key. To this house, Dominic said quietly while Sophia was distracted with her gifts. I'm not asking you to move in. Not yet. But I want you to know you're always welcome here. That this place is yours as much as mine, whenever you're ready. Elena looked at the key, at this man who'd saved her, and then kept showing up, kept choosing her, kept making space in his life for a woman and child who'd once had nothing. I love you, she said. The words felt huge, terrifying, true. I'm still figuring out how to trust this, how to believe it's real. But I love you. Dominic's smile could have lit up the city. That's enough. That's more than enough. They kissed while snow fell outside and Sophia sang carols with the other kids, and Elena thought that maybe, just maybe, fairy tales could happen to people like her. Not the sanitized Disney version, the real kind, where you fought and bled and clawed your way toward happy, where princes had complicated pasts and happily ever after came with security teams and federal investigations, but real nonetheless. 6 months later, Elena graduated from community college with her associate's degree. Dominic was in the front row, cheering louder than anyone. Sophia held a sign she'd made herself. "Mi mama is smart." 2 months after that, Elena started a 4-year program in social work. She wanted to help families like hers had been to be the person in the system who actually gave a damn, who fought for the people everyone else wrote off. 1 year after the day Dominic had made his phone call, Elena and Sophia moved into his house in Lincoln Park, not as charity cases or temporary guests, but as family, real family, chosen family, the kind that mattered most. And on the mantel in the library, beside the photo of Dominic's sister and niece, sat a new frame. Elena, Sophia, and Dominic on Thanksgiving, laughing at something one of the kids had said, looking like what they'd become. A family that had found each other in the wreckage and built something beautiful from the broken pieces. 3 years after the phone call that changed everything, Elena stood in the kitchen of the Lincoln Park brownstone, watching snow fall through the window, while she stirred hot chocolate for what had become their Sunday morning tradition. The house no longer felt like Dominic's house. It felt like theirs. Evidence of their blended life marked every room. Sophia's artwork on the refrigerator beside important business documents, Elena's nursing textbooks stacked next to Dominic's development proposals, family photos crowding the mantel where once only memories of the dead had lived. "Mama, is it ready?" Sophia appeared in the doorway, 9 years old now, and growing so fast it made Elena's heart ache. She wore the purple pajamas Dominic had bought her last week, her hair a wild tangle that would require serious negotiation before they left for the Foundation's winter gala that evening. "Almost, baby. Go wake up Dominic. Tell him if he wants chocolate. He needs to stop pretending to sleep." Sophia giggled and thundered up the stairs. Elena heard her daughter's delighted shriek, followed by Dominic's dramatic groaning as she clearly jumped on the bed. Their bed. The one Elena had finally agreed to share permanently 18 months ago, after a year of keeping her own room, just in case. Just in case. He changed his mind. Just in case this fairy tale evaporated. Just in case she woke up and found herself back in that moldy apartment, alone and terrified. But the fairy tale held, grew stronger, became something more solid than fantasy. Became reality built on trust and patience, and showing up every single day. "Someone sent a tiny terrorist to attack me," Dominic announced, appearing in the kitchen with Sophia on his back, both of them laughing. He'd aged in the years Elena had known him, gray threading through his dark hair, lines deepening around his eyes, but happiness made him look younger than the haunted man who'd first walked into that hallway. "You're just mad because she's better at surprise attacks than you are," Elena said, pouring 3 mugs of hot chocolate and adding the ridiculous amount of marshmallows. Sophia required. They settled at the kitchen table, the morning sun making everything golden and warm. This was Elena's favorite time before the chaos of the day began, when it was just the 3 of them existing in their chosen family bubble. "The gala tonight," Dominic said, doctoring his chocolate while Sophia built a marshmallow tower. "Sophia's coming." Elena's hand froze halfway to her mug. "Your niece? She's coming?" She called last week. Said she's been watching from a distance, seeing the work the Foundation does. She wants to talk, really talk. His voice carried hope and terror in equal measure. "I asked if she'd come to the gala. She said yes." Elena reached across the table, laced her fingers through his. "That's wonderful. That's how are you feeling?" "Terrified. Grateful. Worried I'll say the wrong thing and she'll disappear again." He squeezed her hand. "But she asked about you. About Sophia. Said she wanted to meet the family I'd built." "We'll be there," Elena promised. "Whatever you need." The gala was held at the Palmer House, Chicago's grand dame of hotels, with crystal chandeliers and marble floors, and the kind of opulence Elena had once only seen in movies. She wore a deep blue dress that Dominic had helped her pick out elegant without being flashy, sophisticated without pretending to be something she wasn't. Sophia wore a velvet dress she'd chosen herself, her hair finally tamed into braids woven with silver ribbon. She walked between Elena and Dominic with confidence, greeting foundation families and donors with the poise of someone who'd grown up attending events like this. "There she is," Dominic said quietly, his entire body tensing. Elena followed his gaze to a young woman standing near the bar, mid-20s, with Dominic's dark hair and his sister's delicate features, wearing jeans and a blazer like armor against the formal crowd. She looked terrified and defiant in equal measure. "Go," Elena said gently. "We'll be right here." She watched Dominic cross the room, saw Sophia's expression shift from defensive to uncertain, to something that might have been hope. They spoke too far away for Elena to hear, but she could read the body language. Stiff at first, then softening. Then Sophia started crying, and Dominic pulled her into a hug that looked like it was healing years of wounds in a single embrace. "Is that Dominic's niece?" Sophia asked, watching with the intense curiosity of a child who understood more than adults gave her credit for. "Yes, baby. They haven't seen each other in a long time. This is very important." She looks sad. She's been sad for a while, but I think she's getting better. After what might have been minutes or hours, Dominic walked Sophia over, his arm around her shoulders like he was afraid she might vanish if he let go. "Sophia, this is Elena and her daughter Sophia, my family." Sophia's eyes were red from crying, but she smiled, shaky and genuine. "He talks about you constantly. In every letter I never answered, every voicemail I never returned. You and the little girl who loves books and wants to save animals." "Hi," Sophia said with 9-year-old directness. "I'm sorry you were sad, but I'm glad you're here now. Dominic missed you a lot." Sophia laughed, watery and surprised. "You call him Dominic? Not Uncle Dom or something formal?" "He said I could call him whatever felt right." "Dominic feels right." Sophia paused, considering. "Are you going to stay? Like really stay? Because if you disappear again, it'll make him really sad, and I don't like when he's sad." "Sophia," Elena started, but Sophia shook her head. "No, she's right. I've been selfish. I've been so angry at him for not being there when I needed him that I never let him be there when he was ready." She looked at Dominic. "I'm not promising I'm all the way better. I'm still figuring out how to trust people, but I want to try. I want to know you, know this life you've built. That's all I'm asking," Dominic said quietly. "Just a chance." They spent the evening together, 4 people who'd all been broken in different ways, learning how to be family. Sophia told stories about Seattle, her coffee shop, the therapy she'd finally started. Sophia showed her pictures on Elena's phone of the stuffed animal hospital and her book collection. Dominic looked at his niece like she was proof that impossible things could heal. And Elena watched her chosen family expand, watched another wounded person find their way home, and thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago, desperate and alone and terrified of losing everything. That woman wouldn't recognize her life now, wouldn't believe that cleaning hospital floors could lead to this. A man who loved her fiercely, a daughter who was thriving, a niece slowly learning to trust again, a purpose bigger than just survival. Later that night, after the gala ended and Sophia was asleep, and Sophia had gone back to her hotel with promises to return for brunch the next morning, Elena and Dominic stood on the back patio of their home, wrapped in coats against the winter cold. "Thank you," Dominic said quietly. "For tonight, for the past 3 years, for not running when things got complicated. Thank you for making one phone call." Elena leaned into him, breathing in his familiar scent. "For seeing someone who needed help and actually helping. For changing everything. I need to tell you something. I need to tell you something." Dominic's arms tightened around her. "The foundation, I'm expanding it. Not just housing and education support. I'm adding legal services, family reunification programs, support for kids aging out of foster care. Sophia helped me understand what was missing. That's incredible. I want you to help run it." He turned her to face him. "You're graduating with your social work degree in 4 months. I want you to direct the new family services program. Set policy, hire staff, determine how we actually help people, instead of just throwing money at problems." Elena's breath caught. "Dominic, that's huge. I'm not sure I'm qualified to." "You're the most qualified person I know." His voice was fierce. "You've lived it. You know what families need because you were that family. You understand the system's failures because you survived them. There's no one better." Elena thought about the social worker who'd tried to take Sophia. about the broken system that measured worth in square footage instead of love, about all the families still trapped in the situation she'd escaped. "Okay," she whispered. "Yes, let's do it." Dominic smiled, then reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box that made Elena's heart stop. "I know we've been taking this slow. I know you needed time to trust this was real." He opened the box, revealing a simple diamond ring, elegant, understated, perfect. "But I don't want to wait anymore. I want to make this official. I want you to be my wife. I want to adopt Sophia if she'll have me. I want us to be a family in every possible way." Tears streamed down Elena's face. "Yes. God, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Like everything else with them, unexpected, unconventional, but absolutely right. "I love you," Dominic said. "Both of you. My family. My future. Everything that matters." "I love you too." Elena kissed him, tasting salt and joy and the promise of all the years ahead. "Thank you for saving us. For giving us this life. You saved me first," he reminded her. "You showed me how to be good, how to build something worth having, how to be the person my sister believed I could be." They stood together in the falling snow, two people who'd been broken and lost, who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something beautiful. A single mother who'd fought for her daughter with everything she had, a reformed criminal trying to redeem his past, a little girl who deserved better than what the world had tried to give her, and a future built on one phone call, one moment of choosing to help, one decision to see someone's humanity instead of their circumstances. Sometimes that's all it took to change everything. One person willing to make the call, one person brave enough to answer, and the courage to build something real from the broken pieces. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.